Here we are, back with Asbo 42. This is the day after the test ride, and it actually stopped charging part way round that route I took yesterday, and by the time I got back the headlamp was on very dim because it was only running directly off the battery with nothing going in from the alternator. So I informed the owner and he said he'd like me to have a look and see why. Well, the first thing that I saw on this when I started looking was I happened to spot this fuse holder under the seat, which did have another purple wire coming out the other end of it, but as I sort of grabbed hold of it to get the thing unscrewed and check the fuse, the purple wire coming out this end just pulled out. Further investigations revealed that this purple wire is only sort of relevant to a set of indicators which have been on this machine at some time and removed, so I don't need to worry about that. That one ruled that out anyway as far as the charging was concerned. So I thought, well, best thing to do is take the tank off, because obviously the tank was off when the machine arrived here, and I put the tank back on and we got all that lovely nest of wire in there and connections, and I thought, well, maybe something got disturbed when I put the tank on. It didn't initially, but at some point this block connector had worked itself undone, and that is the one that connects the regulator rectifier to the rest of the system. So that coming apart is why it stopped charging. It was charging initially when we set off, but somewhere along the line that came apart. So putting that back together has put that in order. But when I was testing the electrics here and switching the lights on, all of a sudden, after the lights initially coming on, before I got it charging again, actually before I dealt with that connection, the lights suddenly went off and wouldn't come back on again. So the battery was also now isolated from the electrical system, and I thought, well, what's going on here? This is rather makeshift, this wiring. I just put that together, and that one was taped up, although that's an earth anyway, as the bike arrived here with no battery, so I made the appropriate connections up to get one of my batteries on it. That's why this is like this. But it turned out that the positive was no longer connected up to earth. If I put a tester across this one and to anywhere, any earthing point on the bike, I was getting no reading, and that was because the earth wire runs under the seat there. To give you some idea, there's all sorts of wires and connections and things under there as well, chocolate block connectors and God knows what bullet connectors, and this earth wire goes in among them, and actually there's a big connector block under there somewhere. I don't know if we're even going to see that actually. Let's see. I just got my finger on it there. Take my word for it. But the brown wire for the earth or positive goes into that lot, and just wiggling that around made the lights come back on. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to run an auxiliary separate earth directly from the battery box to where the earth wire is grounded, and that should take care of that. I think what happened is yesterday it was very, very wet. I think some damp must have got into that block connector in there and isolated the earth. But just look at this lot. I'm so glad that I didn't have to deal with all this lot to try and get it charging again. Look at that lot. I don't know who did that. Maybe it was the owner. I don't know. But I'm just so glad that I don't have to get involved with that lot in there, and that hopefully just sorting out decent earth wire from the battery to the frame should get everything working again. And I know that it's already capable of charging again. We haven't fried the regulator rectifier, so that's good news. So one new earth wire, put the tank back on carefully, and I think I'll tape this up so that it can't perhaps shake or pull apart of its own accord. Pop the headlamp back on. Look at that lot in there. And finally we should have Asbo 42 ready to go home. As some of the comments after the ride were asking about what I thought might have made it seize up, or why did it seize up, or whatever, partially seize. Well, I don't know, because I wasn't riding it when it happened, so I don't know what sort of conditions it was being subjected to when it did. These are the sort of things that can happen from time to time. Perhaps it was pulling very hard up a steep hill on a hot day in a high gear. I don't know. That's the most likely sort of scenario, but I really don't know. But all I can say is yesterday it seemed to run pretty well. I kept the loads light and the throttle openings below half. The Indian cylinder barrels, which this will be one, was alloy, some of them can be bored a little on the tight side, so that may have been a contributory factor to it. I don't know, but it's already got a few miles under its belt, and obviously I've sort of honed it out a little bit to clean the bore up and get the residue of the alloy that came off the piston out the way and so on. So hopefully with a few more miles put on it as time goes by, things will loosen up alright. Although the new piston, I checked the fit of it in the bore, and although it was on the sort of tight end of the tolerance scale, it wasn't too tight, so careful running in should do it. And I've had the plug out and had a look at that, and that's on the dark side of the spectrum for the mixture, so I know it's not running weak. I also checked the fuel flow from the fuel tap into the carburetor main jet area, and the fuel flow was good, so I don't think it's starved of fuel, and there was no dirt in the bottom of the carburetor, so I don't really think that there's anything to worry about and necessarily assume that it's going to happen again, because everything looks in pretty good shape as far as I can tell. Anyway, I'm going to sort that earth out now and put the tank back on and the headlamp back in, and hopefully this time it will be sorted and ready to go home.